Good morning, everybody. This one. Hi, Sue. I think you're still muted.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing all right. A few things too on the agenda today, huh?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a lengthy agenda today. So
I'm gonna go close my door real fast. So
hi, Michael. Long time no speak. I'm hoping that I invited our new libraries. I'm just going to take a quick look here. Hoping they'll be able to join us today.
yes, that'd be nice.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay.
6 so 9 minutes till a few minutes early. We did already, Ian Despro has already received kudos for adding our recorded meetings to the YouTube channel. Small libraries sometimes can't always attend meetings because they're covering their cert desk. So
Exactly.
So we've already gotten some positive feedback about offering them through the YouTube channel.
Yes, and having them front and center on the homepage on the website is wonderful.
That was Ron Eifert.
Yes, we need to give him kudos too.
Yes, he's the website master. I just send him anything and he does it. It's fantastic.
I think I printed out.
Missouri Evergreen is working so hard. We have, I think, 7 committees right now. People are putting in the work. I need to send everyone like chocolate bouquets or something. People are working so hard. Good morning, Diane. Thank you for straightening me out this morning. I had a mini panic attack when I thought, wait a minute.
Yeah, like I said, I understand those panic attacks, what that feels like.
Diane fixed the rule about not renewing when people owe fines, and for a second I got it confused with not renewing overdues, but that wasn't the case at all. She got me on the straight and narrow, so I understood what was happening. Hope people, I've had a few people tell me they have conflicts. I hope there's not a lot of conflicts this morning. There's a big peace proposal I really want people available to vote on. Good morning, Elena. I'm glad you could join us. Oh.
Here she is.
How is everybody today?
Doing well.
Good.
And you?
Doing pretty good. It's rainy and soggy here.
Oh.
Yeah.
That stinks. I definitely owe Leanne a big chocolate bouquet because she decided that she would handle onboarding, and I'm eternally grateful, Leanne.
Oh.
Yeah, we will see how it goes.
Let me make sure.
I exited full screen and now I can't get back again.
You need to Alt Tab.
Alt what?
Alt Tab. It'll bring up a window that's hidden behind.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning, Kate. How are you?
Doing well. How's everybody?
Doing good.
Good.
Shannon, did you get that thumbnail I sent you for this meeting?
No. Or May, when did you send it?
Day before yesterday? Monday, maybe?
Maybe. I'll look for it.
Okay.
Thank you. We got about 2 minutes till. I'll give a few more minutes just to make sure everyone gets connected. Cedar County says it's dark and rainy where they are. Is anyone else getting to enjoy sunshine today?
And it's kind of overcast here, but it's not rainy.
Not rainy.
We had storms move through last night, but not raining right now, but it's not sunny.
We have beautiful sunshine here in Poplar Bluff. It's nice. Let's see. Okay. Okay, well, we have 10 right on the dot. So we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and get started. I just wanted to give, oh, I apologize that I don't have minutes from the February meeting. We do have a vacant board position, and that's our board secretary. We'll be hopefully filling that position before our next meeting, and I do think Rachel Grimm does have those meetings. I just didn't get them from her. So I will send those out after today's meeting. Moving into executive report, mainly I wanted to talk about our upcoming upgrade. We are scheduled still for Wednesday, April the 28th. We're going to be moving from version 3.3.7 all the way to version 3.6. So we'll be skipping version 3.4 and 3.5. I sent out an email to the membership at large. Sorry, guys. With some resources. One is a video from Equinox about some highlights of version 3.6 changes. I sent out the manual from the International Evergreen community on version 3.6. And then I tried to send out some release notes from changes in 3.4 and 3.5. Since we're jumping from 3.3 to 3.6, I thought it was important to go back and review what those changes were in each of those versions. I don't have any updated information from Equinox outside of the test server links that we've sent out previously. Does anyone have any questions about the upgrade or comments? No? So, and just to clarify and revisit, we're going to try to upgrade annually. Missouri Evergreen is going to try to upgrade annually about this time of the year. The new version releases around October. And so if we wait until the first week of May, that gives time for that latest version to receive some bug patches and some updates before we go live on it. And we're trying to set an annual schedule so that we don't wait too long and start running on a version that's not supported, which is kind of where we are now. 3.3 is not being supported by the international community. Equinox is still patching it on their own. And so we're trying to stay on the latest version and keep on a routine schedule with upgrades. So that's where we are. We're going to try to do this every year about the last week of April, first week of May. Next, I want to welcome Cedar County has joined us this morning. Welcome, Elena Daniels. We have received 3 signed MOUs since our last meeting: James Memorial Library in St. James, Missouri, Henry County Library, and Cedar County Library. James Memorial will go live July 29th. Henry County will go live August 19th. And Cedar County will come on board probably the last week of September, first week of October in our next fiscal year. And Elena and I are going to visit next week and try to hammer down the exact date for their go live. Both James Memorial and Cedar County are going to need a rebar code. Henry County does not need to rebar code. So we're working through rebar coding those libraries. Missouri Evergreen already owns 2 rebar coding units, and the board voted to purchase a 3rd unit. So we're trying to help libraries that are coming on board that need a rebar code do so as efficiently as possible and as painless as possible. So everybody, join me in saying hi to Elena. Hi, Elena.
Hi.
Is Henry County or James Memorial here this morning? I didn't see them.
Hi, sorry.
Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have also had interest from 2 other libraries. Rolla Public Library and Reynolds County have reached out. Rolla said they're going to present to their board April 15th to join Missouri Evergreen. So everybody keep your fingers crossed. I'll let you know as soon as I hear from her about that. And then Missouri Evergreen has scheduled a demo for Reynolds County on April 13th. Reynolds County is not automated, so I'm talking with Equinox about what that process might look like to bring Reynolds County online if they decide to join Missouri Evergreen. I just wanted to point out the Missouri Evergreen YouTube channel. We are adding meetings. Jake Johnson asked if Joplin decided to go with another ILS. Yes, we did hear from Joplin, and Missouri Evergreen was not selected for their next round of consideration. We are adding general membership meetings and committee meeting recordings to the YouTube channel. And we both Kate Coleman and Diane Deespro, oh, and I should also, and Kyle, have added training materials to those training videos, I should say, to our YouTube channel. So if you haven't had a chance yet to go check out what's there, please do. I think they're covering, the Strategic Planning Committee sent out a survey to members. Some of that survey feedback alerted us to the fact that some libraries weren't aware of some of the new features Evergreen has. And I know Diane has tried to go out and do some videos that illustrate those new features and how to use them. So if you haven't had a chance to check out that content, please do so, or just know it's there for when you need it. And the last thing for me this morning, I need to set a nominating committee. So we should have, I know we have one vacant board position. Rachel Grimm did resign from the board effective with the February meeting. So we have that vacant board position to fill, and then we should have some board members terming out. So I'd like to set a nominating committee for the executive board, and I'd like to ask the nominating committee to work with the current committee chairs. I think some of the committee chairs have already been reaching out and trying to grab some volunteers and some committee chairs for the next fiscal year. The term begins July 1. I shouldn't say fiscal year. The committee members serve from July 1 through June 30. So I'd like to go ahead and set a nominating committee this meeting and ask them to come back in our June meeting with the slate of or recommendation. Do I have any volunteers for that meeting?
So there will be a recommendation and a vote at the next membership meeting?
Yes, I think so, Kate. So it does say in the bylaws that we're supposed to vote on and that the chair sets a nominating committee and then the membership votes. That's how the bylaws read.
Are you saying you're looking for a nominating committee, people to serve on that, Shannon?
Yes, I am.
I'll be on that, sure.
Okay. Anyone else want to volunteer? And to be honest, I'm in the bylaws, it defines which board member's term is expiring, but I might have to rely on Steve or Sue Lightfoot to help me clarify which board members that is, because I couldn't tell.
I have absolutely no idea. I don't even know where to get that information from.
It's in the board, it's written in the bylaws, and it even shows which board members were serving which year, but I just couldn't. I couldn't clarify it. I just couldn't.
So we're not filling Rachel's position early. We're just going to go absent until July 1. Okay.
That's what I thought. Unless someone feels we should do differently. Anyone else besides Steve brave enough to join the committee?
I will, because I think I have some of that information so I can figure out what terms are going.
Thank you, Sue.
Yes, Sue can figure out the terms and I can twist arms, I guess.
There you go. Sounds
Perfect
like a
combo.
plan.
The perfect team.
Perfect combo. One more person to serve with Sue and Steve. And then I'll be quiet and let committee members.
Come on, people, you'll have to do nothing. Me and Sue already broke down the workload. There's nothing else to do. Oh, there you go. Jeff's going to be on it. Perfect, Jeff. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Perfect. Okay, I'll send out an email to the three of you. And thank you all three so much for agreeing to serve on that committee. Okay, that's all I had for my committee report. Is there any questions of me before we move into the financials? No? If not, I'll go ahead and bring up the financials and turn it over to Sue Lightfoot.
I usually just turn it over to Kristen with Amigos, and I made sure she was here today. So I will just let Kristen take the room.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen from Amigos, and we do the financials for Missouri Evergreen. Not a whole lot going on. I don't know if I'm able to share my screen because I do have the financials up.
That would be great.
Okay, I'm showing that it's been disabled. So,
Sorry. Let me try again.
okay. Or
I
I
have
can
to
just
look on
tell
my-
you about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It was
have
in
it on
it was
my
in the
email.
email that Shannon sent out.
Yep.
Okay, there it is. So right now you've got 279,000, almost 280 in the commerce checking account, and you also have the reserve account as well, the reserve fund that has 141,000. So your total assets are $282,232.16. For the last month in March, we did get some Marchive income. We invoiced everyone for the quarterly Marchive dues, and I'm happy to say we finally got all of that craziness figured out with the overbilling from the previous year. So everyone should have received all of their credits, and from now on, the Marchive bills will be just straight up. I don't know if that's me or someone else. But yeah, the Marchive bills will just be the regular bills. There won't be any more credits on those. And we did have some expenses this last quarter. We had an Equinox expense for $2,225, another Marchive bill, which we get every month, and then we had the Amigos $3,000 for the quarterly bill. So far, everything's looking pretty good. The income is 141,000, so doing pretty good for the year. We can kind of skip past the aging summary, but the final report is the budget's first actual. So you're already at 100% for all of the annual billing and the synthetic fees and the Evergreen fees. The Marchive gets billed quarterly, so that's why we're a little bit off on that. Everything else, I mean, it's looking pretty good. Pretty much on track. I mean, there was a little bit with the audit fee was not quite budgeted correctly, so that's why it's over 1,000% higher. But that was just, you know, a few $100s. But yeah, if anyone has any questions at all, I'll be happy to field that. But yeah, basically everything's looking good.
So I'm sorry, let me go back to the budget sheet. What's the net income this year so far?
The net income was 141,168.
And I think we still
That's
have
the net. The total income is over 300,000.
And I think we still have half our annual hosting and support bill and about 45,000 in migrations. So, and then it looks like about 40,000 in revenue and grants still to come in.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and then there'll just be the monthly Marchive bills, which we bill out quarterly. So there'll be that kind of, you know, breaks even because we pay that and then we expense it to the members.
So we do have, we have signed the MOU, as I said, for the migration for James Memorial and Henry County. So those two bills will come out of this migration line this fiscal year. And then Cedar County's will be in FY 2022. Any questions about that? Or any questions for Sue or Kristen? No, if not, then I'll turn it over to the Membership and Fees Committee. Dan Brower had a scheduling conflict and couldn't be here, so I'll ask if Steve Campbell's available to talk about our fee proposal and the fee narrative.
Oh my. Yeah, I can do that. Let's see here.
Bring up the screen.
Well, let me think about this one. I wasn't prepared for this at all. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Let's see. So, what did we? So basically, what we the goal of this fees committee was to reduce the fees for the smallest libraries and to shift that burden to the larger libraries. And three of the four largest libraries were actually on the committee. So, or representatives from three of those four committees, Jefferson County with Tony, and then myself from Scenic, and then Trails was not represented, but Cass County was represented by Dan. So we felt pretty comfortable that we were willing to increase our cost burden to lower the fees. So I think we ended up, well, as you might recall at our last meeting, or maybe it was the meeting before that, the state library kind of intervened and said that they had some different ideas after we presented our fees proposal. And so we went back to the drawing board, but actually it didn't really change too much. We had originally planned on lowering the fees on the smallest libraries from altogether, I think it was about $1,900 to $2,000, and we were lowering it, I think, to something around $1,250. Well, with the extra money that the state library provided us to do even for fees even further, I think we're down to now, with Marchive and Syndetics, I think we're at $1,000 a library, at $950 a library per year. So so overall, the cost has come down to half of what it was before, which we think will be great for the smaller libraries. Most members, I think 2/3 of the members are actually seeing a significant to moderate decrease in their fees. Whereas, like I said, the largest libraries are kind of taking up the biggest burden. I think my library is going up, I don't know, $5,000 or $6,000. I think we're going from 12,000 to 17,000 or 18,000. And then we're going, and then plus Syndetics and Marchive on top of that. So, but we were okay with that. Because of the larger libraries kind of agreed that due to the resource sharing and the fact that, you know, finding a vendor to provide us with an ILS would be probably significantly more than that. We felt like that we were comfortable making that decision. So basically the way it works is it's based on budget, and I believe it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Shannon, under $400,000.
300.
$300,000, the libraries only pay a base fee of what do we say, $800? Sorry, I don't have this in front of me. I'm just really winging this right now. I was not prepared for this. How much did you say, Shannon? 800?
850.
850. Okay, so 850. So that's all they pay is the 850 plus their Marchive and Syndetic fees, which comes to that, I think comes to about 950 for the smallest libraries, 960, something like that. And then you can see how good I'm winging things now. You can see that this is my this is my winging. So and then the largest libraries, if you have a budget of over 300,000, what we did was you have the $850 base fee still, plus we add on to that 0.3% of the annual budget. I guess the annual budget that was most recently reported to the state library is what we're going to from. So it's I think it's like a year or two old probably.
Yes.
So it wouldn't be your most current budget. So if you see the number not looking right, it's going to be lower, most likely than what you're working with that current year, which actually is a good thing. So so it's at 0.3% of the budget, and so that number, that figure is added to the 850, and that's your fees plus your Syndetic and Marchive. So
Steve, is it going to continue being based off of that, the previous years or whatever's budget?
I mean whenever the figures we're going to get each year are the ones that are posted on the Secretary of State's website. So as each year the new one is posted, that's what we're going to go by. So so in theory, the larger libraries are going to see an increase in their fees strictly based on the increase in their budget. So of course your budget goes up 2 or 3% a year. Your fees are going to go up 2 or 3% a year automatically. Now, because of the small libraries do not have an increase at all, because it's not based, it's just a flat fee of $850. We are going to increase that base. I think it's 2% each year. Is that correct? We agreed on. Yeah, I see it right now. Okay, 2% each year. So that base will be going up 2%, and then of course it'll go up for everyone too. But ultimately, it won't be over more than 3% a year. Even when you take the base increasing to 2% and the budget increasing for the larger libraries, I don't think it's going to be more than what we've been already doing the last several years, the 3% we've been doing the last several years. So the reason we did this was because when we just, as the narrative explains, I just to give a recap again, because we talked about this last time too. When we went strictly with a multiplier times the budget, the smaller libraries were paying very little, like they are now, but the larger libraries are just paying enormous amounts of money. When the multiplier was high enough to be able to cover our expenses. And so we had to toss that out. I think it was Sue Lightfoot that I had talked about the multiplier originally, the budget multiplier, and I think Sue Lightfoot was the one who suggested a base and to combine with the budget multiplier. And that kind of hit our sweet spot in terms of making the revenue we needed and not dramatically, I mean, we're talking about dramatically changing the fees for the larger libraries, not just a 50 or 60% increase, but if we had just stuck with the budget multiplier to get the numbers we needed, it was going to be something like, I don't know, we were more than doubling the fees for the larger libraries and even some of the middle libraries. That was not going to be practical. So we kind of worked, we kept on working the numbers in terms of the multiplier and the base fee. We kept on just kind of tinkering with those numbers until we got to a fee structure that we thought provided us the revenue we needed and also achieve the goal we were trying to achieve at the smallest libraries, and then also didn't create just a completely undue burden for the largest libraries. So there you go, folks. The narrative kind of explains all that if you already read it or not. But any questions? I know that I really did have to wing that. I apologize. I was not prepared for this.
I will weigh in and just add that the narrative didn't go out with this last email. Dan Brower just forwarded that to me this morning, so I'll send that out after the meeting with the updated numbers. And I will also add that the state library did commit to increase their LSTA funding for our annual hosting and support. And that's what's allowed us to reduce their base fee from $12.50 to $8.50. So that really came out of the commitment from the state library for more funding for Missouri Evergreen. And then lastly, one of the things I wanted to say, which is I'm just going to repeat Steve Campbell's words. This is something he shared with me. I know the big libraries talk about for them to get another ILS, it would cost probably significantly more than what they're paying for Missouri Evergreen. But as you're talking to other libraries and other directors and other Missouri library staff members about Missouri Evergreen, it's clear to point out that comparing Evergreen as an ILS to another ILS is not apples to apples. You know, you're not getting resource sharing with all of those other services. So if you're really going to look at what the fee structure would cost and you're going to compare Missouri Evergreen money, you're really going to need to compare it more to like a service such as Mobius that provides an ILS and resource sharing. So that's just something that I'm trying to.
And to Shannon's point on that,
Yeah.
when we got a quote from Mobius, it was going to be like for my library something like over $80,000. Just was the ILS alone, I think, was 75 or 80,000 plus. That wasn't even including Mobius fees. So we're talking about quadruple or 5 times the cost for us as we're paying now. And I know some libraries told me that they had Cersei just as an independent library. And I think it was still triple what we're paying now with what our quote was just for Cersei. Now, granted, Evergreen is not Cersei and it's not Polaris. It's not Triple I. I totally get that, but you're getting the resource sharing. So that's kind of the balance on that.
So we just want to keep remembering to spread that word and spread that message as you have an opportunity to talk with other libraries that are interested in Missouri Evergreen to really compare it apples to apples. We really need to look at rather than just, you know, ILS numbers. So I just wanted to share that because that's something I'm trying to keep in my mind and continue to educate other libraries about. Are there any questions about the new proposed fee structure?
It's a big change. I mean, for most of you, it's a good change, but some of you not, I guess.
Well, it does say here that 36 libraries see a decrease and 16 will see an increase. And I think of those 16, most of it is a moderate increase. There's the larger libraries see a little bit more significant, but.
I hope everyone's checked their numbers. Well, the numbers are, well, I guess the numbers are. different than what they were in the last narrative we sent out, so.
Shannon, you'll send all that out to every member then, this recommendation, or will it be voted on today?
I think it'll be voted on today. We sent it out in last meeting's packet in February, and then we resent it today. But I'm open to suggestions if we feel we need to wait and vote on it in June. It won't go into effect until September 1 anyway. So if we feel like we need more time, we can revisit it in June.
Anyone who's uncomfortable with not looking at the narrative before voting, the only change from the last narrative is the base fees decreased $400 for everyone. So if your numbers were okay with you last time, they're $400 better this time. So it's not that this has gotten worse or different. It's literally, that's the only change from the last narrative that hopefully you all read at the last meeting. So we just got more money, like Shannon said, from the state. And so the base fee went down for everyone. So
I see that Pam had mentioned something about she liked the fees are based on libraries' budgets. And that was one of my main things that going into this committee was, you know, we were using statistics, and let's face it, 2020 was horrible. And I couldn't even imagine what kind of statistics that for a base would be. It would have been horrible to base it on that. So
well, not only that, but two libraries can have very identical or similar circulation and be completely different sizes and have completely different budgets. What we decided was really the number one factor, as we all know, with affordability of this consortium and Evergreen is budget. That's what it really comes down to. And frankly, we already weren't basing our fees on the way Equinox was basing their fees for us. So it wasn't like we're changing to something that is different than how Equinox is charging us individually. That's true, but we already were doing that. So
yeah. Equinox charges by service outlet, just FYI. So it does charge differently, and also about what 75 to 80% of Missouri's libraries are small libraries. It is Missouri Evergreen goal and a Missouri State Library goal to get as many Missouri libraries to become members of Missouri Evergreen as possible. And in addressing the fees to small libraries, that's probably the biggest obstacle in reaching that goal. So, any more discussion on the fees proposal? Are we comfortable in taking a vote today? Do we want to wait and take the vote in June? I'm okay either way. Whatever the group feels is the best path forward is fine for me.
I have an opinion on that. Well, Jake says he's okay with voting for it too. What we have 3 migration slots open, as we know, for next fiscal year, which sounds like it's really far away, but we have 1, I guess, 1 for next year so far. We have 4 slots open right now. I think we're going to fill 2 more of those with Reynolds and Rolla, but it would help immensely filling those 2 slots and recruiting if we were to approve this now, because I think what Shannon and I talked about doing was sending out an email to all the libraries that we had surveyed recently, the Strategic Planning Committee had surveyed, and tell them, because one of the big misconceptions was they couldn't afford the consortium. And I think that we'll have a very easy, I think what we're going to do is send an email out addressing some of the misconceptions that were revealed in the strategic planning survey and show the new fee structure. And I think that will get us, easily get us the other slots filled next year. I know when we did the survey, there were at least 15 libraries that wanted demos. So just alone. So I think doing it sooner is better if we're trying to use it for recruitment.
I agree with that.
I'd like to move that we adopt the fee schedule as presented. Michael Davis.
Thank you, Michael. Do you have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
And who is that? I'm sorry.
Rebecca Payne.
Oh, thank you, Rebecca. Any further discussion? If not, I'll say all those in favor.
Aye.
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 Any
Aye.
opposed?
Aye.
No opposed? Okay, well, I have something in the chat. Let me double check it. Yes, okay, great. So I think it passes unanimously. Fantastic. I want to say thank you to the Membership and Fees Committee because they worked really hard on trying to strike balance and trying to move Missouri Evergreen forward with a healthy fee structure that we could use to recruit new members and stay solvent and still meet some other goals. So I appreciate all the hard work that you guys did on that. As 2 policies did come out of the membership and fees committee. One was actually we had a reserve fund policy before. This is let me see if I can find it, guys. Nope. All right, 1 second. This is a revamp of the reserve policy we had before. Give me 2 seconds and I'll get it on the screen. Did everyone have a chance to read it in your email? There it is. Here we go. Okay. So before the reserved fund policy was written by Mobius, and it talked about paying an annual reserve fee that would be held by Mobius to primarily replace aging equipment. At that time, Missouri Evergreen was running on its own hardware, and that was a big purpose or behind our reserve policy. Of course, now we are doing hosted solutions, so we're not responsible for replacing hardware. And so as a part of changing how we bill and no longer billing that annual reserve amount, we needed to address the reserve policy. So does everyone have a chance to either have read that before or see it on the screen and read it now? Is there any input about this policy? Questions?
Is it, or let me look over this real quick. I know we've talked about this. Okay, it is a operating budget, not revenue. So, because obviously like this year, it's different. Those are different figures.
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure it's the actual operating budget that they're basing this on. Okay, cool.
And I will say that if we adopt this policy today, that we will already have met our reserve fund policy. We'll already have enough in reserves to be compliant with the new reserve fund policy. Are there any other questions or input? Chat's not on my screen, so if someone sees something in chat, please let me know. If there's no further discussion, I'd entertain a motion to adopt.
Becky, I move that we adopt the reserve fund policy.
I'll second it. Steve Campbell seconding.
So Becky at Donovan made the motion and Steve the second. Thank you. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The next one is the development fund policy, and let me get that on the screen. And this was actually something that I know Steve Campbell was pretty on board with. Steve, do you want to talk about the purpose of the development fund policy?
Oh yeah, here I go again. Okay, more ringing. So most other consortia around the country, Evergreen or open source consortia, they have some type of development fund. A lot of them do. And they use that, of course, to fix things like when we did with the app. You know, the app was kind of a volunteer effort. People contributed money to it, which was awesome. Everyone donated money. We still have money left over from that money for future tweaks to the app, which has been great. We've already done that. We've already used money from that excess fund a couple times already, so that's good. But I don't think that's a practical way to move forward permanently. I know there's been talk, I don't know if in this meeting, but there's been talk outside of this meeting about Equinox working on a new reports module upgrade or something. There's going to be a lot of money. And so basically one of the benefits of open source, of course, as we all know, and what we've kind of sold it as is if you don't like something about your ILS, you can pay to get it fixed. Unfortunately, we've never set aside money to make those fixes. And sometimes, multiple consortia will chip in money to get something fixed that's a problem for everyone, but we don't have that money to chip unless we're going to be using our reserves, which I don't think is, I mean, it's not the worst use of reserves, but it's not ideal. So I had talked last year, well, whenever we did the app, I was talking about wanting to do a development fund in which we would put a certain amount of money in each year and ideally build it up so that we could use it to fix things, whatever they happen to be, whether it's booking module or reports module or even just little tweaks, or even in the future, once we run out of this excess money for the app, if the app ever needs to be worked on or upgraded, the money would be there for that. So that's what this is basically for. I'm looking this over and it says not less than 1% of the base membership fees. I know at one point we talked about the goal being 5.5% is what we had originally talked about. I think this has been lowered down just to give the board flexibility so that if one given year they can't give the full 5.5%, that would be, you know, at least they're putting something into it. The goal was to put, you know, $7,000 or $8,000 in a year and try to build it up to $50,000 or maybe even more. Because frankly, you know, when we did the app, it was only a couple $1,000s because it was already created by other consortia, which put out the money from their development funds to develop the app. And then all we basically were doing was customizing it, which was very cheap. However, if you're going to do something, actual development of something like redo the entire reports module, we're talking more like in the range of $40,000 to $100,000. Now, this wouldn't all just be contributed by our consortium and probably multiple consortium, but we're talking about large sums of money. So I think building our development fund up into the $40,000 or $50,000 or $60,000 range isn't unrealistic because you can easily blow through that by doing one major development project.
Steve and Shannon, Sean in the chat asks, what's the difference between reserve fund and development fund and why it's important to have both?
Reserve funds, it's my understanding, like, for example, when we left Mobius and went to, what do you call it? Equinox, sorry. We had to use our reserves to cover the difference in, I guess, fees or something. I was not really directly involved in that financially, but according to Colleen last time, I don't know if she's on the call, she was talking about how we had to use our, we wouldn't have been able to do that migration, that switch without having reserves to rely on, at least temporarily. Reserves are also going to be used for, you know, things like, let me think of some other things. If we had to do a cleanup or something, you know, a big, I think we used our reserves in the past for a big cataloging cleanup or something like that. So reserves are for things like that. You can definitely use reserves for software development. I just like to have my reserves separated out. You know, like some libraries have a reserve fund, then they'll have a separate like sub-reserve fund for a bookmobile replacement or automobiles, or so I just like having it broken down like that. I guess technically they're both reserves, but I think having it designated for software development is a better idea from a policy standpoint, from a planning standpoint, you know. That's just my opinion. Like I said, other consortia have those, you know. They're just really for different purposes.
Well, I happily move to adopt the development fund policy.
I want to ask a question real quick. This is Kyle at Trails. So Steve, you talked about the fact that the goal was 5.5%, but the policy says not less than 1%. The policy doesn't necessarily state how the percentage is going to be set. Is the idea that the board would just make that decision each year, or what would the process look like?
Yes. The board would, in creating the budget, it's my understanding, and Shannon can correct me because she's the president right now. It's my understanding that when we create the budget each year, we would have a certain amount of money to exceed 1% of our fees budgeted in our budget for the reserve fund each year. So the board would decide that and vote on that when they voted on their budget each year.
Correct.
Did I answer your question, Kyle?
Yep. Yep. That was my assumption. I just wanted to make sure that was clear.
This is Sue, ma'am, to make a statement in regard to support. There was even times when we would ask Mobius to make a change for us that was going to be a cost. And we looked at it at that time, it was going to benefit the whole consortium. And that's the part of what I feel the development fund is, as a support, is something that is good for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would have to be something that everyone could use, like the app, for example, or a reports module work over. I will say one thing, I'm just looking this over right now, and I don't know if anyone wants to change this or not. I don't mean to throw a monkey wrench in this, but I know we just got done talking about the fees committee and how in the fees committee we had like a base fee plus the multiplier. Is it confusing to anyone that in this reserve policy here, which I can't see now, I got Shannon's face on there instead. So there we go. That's okay. It says 1%, not less than 1% of base membership fees. Is that going to confuse everyone? Because what that intends to say, I think, Shannon, is 1% of the membership fees, the total membership fees.
Yes,
not just
that
that
is.
850.
No. Yes, you're correct, Steve.
So should we amend that just to say maybe 1% of the overall membership fees?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't notice that the first time.
Then I move to adopt the amended development fund policy.
I'll second.
Jake Johnson, were you the second? Yes, thank you. Any other discussion?
Making some big decisions today.
Okay, well, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? No? Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Steve, for sharing information about that today. Make sure.
No problem.
I'm not sure if it's keeping the share up. Okay. So are there any other questions for the membership and fees committee before we move on to cataloging? No? Okay. I'll turn it over to Kate.
So Shannon already mentioned the YouTube channel. I wanted to add that by this Monday, which is our cataloging committee meeting, there will be 10 to 15 additional training videos on the YouTube channel. So look out for that. I think the YouTube channel is a real benefit to our consortium. The Evergreen International Online Conference is May 24th through the 27th. That's not too far out. It is online this year, of course, and this conference is one of the conferences that is, everything you learn there is immediately applicable to your job. It's one of the best conferences that I have ever been to, and they cover, you know, if you go to MLA conference or something like that, there's stuff that, you know, doesn't always apply to everybody. And this stuff is so specific to what we do on a day-to-day basis that it's just a great conference, and everybody should look into it. They should have the schedule up, I believe, by the 20th. I know that there's some great programs that are going to be in there. So it's going to be good. Earlier this week, it was the board discussed e-material records from migrating libraries. So last year at some point, we Equinox deleted all of our e-material bib records in our catalog. It was the committee's feeling and recommendation, and the board supported that patrons that use these, you know, that use e-materials, they go to that third-party app or website to choose those items. They're not necessarily finding them in the catalog, and those bibs were causing our catalog a lot of issues. So we had them delete them. So we want it to be known to migrating libraries that if they currently catalog their e-materials, that those bib records will not be coming into our consortium catalog. And it was unanimous, I believe, that everybody agreed that we would not do that. As you know, this past December, the cataloging committee and the board adopted a new cataloging policy. In that policy, one of the things that garnered the most questions was the certified cataloger training. And I receive a lot of questions about it, not just from catalogers. A lot of directors are interested as well too. We plan to have that completed by the end of summer. That's kind of our vague goal. What that looks like, it's still kind of up in the air. You know, whether it be in person or online, that kind of stuff is still going to be decided, perhaps right up to the moment that we have it completed. So stay tuned for when that will be completed, but we are shooting for the end of summer. I wanted to say something that anybody that has ever been in any of my cataloging meetings will know this. This is what I say every month, and I want to share it with everybody here, regardless of whether you're a cataloger or not. The bib records in our catalog are shared bibliographic records. They don't belong to one library. They don't belong to whomever edited it last, whoever uploaded it. These bib records are all of ours. So it's all of our duty to, you know, edit them, to make them better. And everybody should feel comfortable doing that. Just because someone, you know, you see that it was last edited by an admin, that doesn't mean that you can't edit it. That doesn't, these do not belong to one library. So every bib record that you see belongs to all of us, not one library. And the only thing left is our next meeting is this coming Monday, and then May 10th and June 14th. And then I will no longer be chair of the cataloging committee. Any questions about anything, anyone?
Thank you, Kate, for your report and also for all you've done for the cataloging committee. I know you've had a lot of big projects on your shoulders, and I think you've done magnificent. So thank you.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks.
If there's no other questions for Kate, I'll turn it over to Diane for the circulation committee report.
Good morning. The first thing that the circulation committee wants to ask of you today is to make a change to the circulation policy. The policy currently reads that the committee will be made up of 6 members, and each member will serve 2 years. We kind of painted ourselves into a corner when we added that to the circulation policy. So we would just like to remove those numbers from the circulation policy so that we are not boxed into just 6 members and that the members serve 2 years. Do I need to explain that anymore, or could we just vote on it?
Does anyone have questions for Diane about the circ policy? So Diane, you'd like us to go ahead and move to adopt the circ policy with the revisions
Yes,
that you
ma'am.
just stated? Okay. Do I
So
have a,
moved. Michael Davis.
thank you, Michael. Do I have a second for that motion?
Becky Wilcox, second.
Thank you, Becky. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I put on the agenda here the transit list and the canceled transit report. I've noticed that libraries are doing a good, well, maybe I should just say a better job of monitoring their transit lists. If something has been in transit for a month, then we really should be trying to track it down. I know that we have some wonky things that are going to Indianapolis to the USPS center there. But if something has been in transit for a month, really you need to try to find it. And if you don't find it and it's yours, cancel the transit and mark it missing. So we don't have hundreds of our materials just in limbo somewhere. The same thing, well, it's a different story, but with the canceled transit, I've been sending a report out every month of items that are in a status of canceled transit. Once a transit has been canceled, you need to follow that action up with something else. Mark it missing, delete it, check it out to an account somewhere. Canceled transit is a bad status. And I have seen a big improvement since I've started sending out a report every month of canceled transits, that fewer items are getting hung up in that status. On the Missouri Evergreen website, there are explanations of what to do about the transit list and how to handle canceling a transit. So you can find that on moevergreenlibraries.org. In the member resources drop-down menu, the circulation resources there. The transit list, I know somebody put in the chat, I didn't see who it was, about checking, about reporting to MALA when something is missing in transit. They don't really care. They are not going to pay us, reimburse us for anything lost in transit. If you can actually see tire marks on something to prove that the courier drove over something, they would pay for a damage, but you're going to have to be able to prove that it was the courier that lost something before they're going to pay for it. So if a transit vehicle goes up in smoke, then maybe they'll pay for it. So they do have a report form that you can fill out, the title, the author, the ISBN number, and all that. We've done that and gotten an email back saying, what do you want us to do about it? So you can report it, but I don't think anything's going to happen. The best thing we can do is contact the library it was coming from. The library is going to say, everybody, please make sure you've looked for it, because we all know that sometimes you print a transit slip and then another staff member comes along and puts that item back on the shelf. So the status is in transit, but it's happily sitting on a shelf somewhere in your library. So the best you can do, pardon?
This is Jane from MALA, the new executive director. And I hope you're not getting any of those messages recently. We're working very hard. Henry is our courier service, our drivers, our contractors. We track everyone that's reported to us. We have the warehouses looking for them. So if you're having those kind of responses from any of my staff at MALA, please let me know, because that is not what I'm seeing these days. I can't answer what happened in the last 2 years. I've only started since January, but we worked really hard with the 300 plus items missing from the Osho. We're down to 11 or maybe 20. I'm not sure. I can't remember what Shannon sent me. So we do a lot of tracking. There's just a lot of stops along the way of figuring out where the problems are. So I can apologize for what's happened in the past, but I'm hoping none of this has happened recently. So please just reach out to us. We're here every day, Monday through Friday. Linda's our direct courier coordinator. I'm the director. Our business manager. Any of us can be happy to take any phone calls or emails. And we work hard to get Henry to reimburse, but it is a long process for reimbursements because of so many different stops along the way that problems can occur. So, and we have gotten some of those postage due things, and we will be issuing checks. We just are waiting to make sure that that library doesn't get another one in the next week and have to write 2 checks for $2.75. So we'd rather write a $5.50 check, one check. So again, please know we're working really hard, but we need to have all that information because we use lots of different warehouses across the state. So if we know which libraries are affected, we can track down which warehouses those are coming from. And if it's the same courier driver or maybe a sub courier driver that day, COVID's hit the courier drivers really hard, and there's lots of not necessarily permanent changes, but changes maybe for a month while someone's quarantining. And so sometimes those substitute drivers aren't as completely trained as we would like them to be. So again, reach out to me anytime. I'm pretty here 5 days a week, so hopefully you guys will do that.
And I'd like to add to what Jane said. It may not be that you'll be reimbursed for something through the courier, but we do need to document issues we're having with the courier. I may be confused, but I think the Missouri State Library pays for the courier, and that's by contract. So if a courier is not doing their job and we go back out for bid, we have all this documentation to say this courier is not delivering materials reliably or in good condition, and then we can seek a different courier to provide that service. I think Robin's in the meeting. So Robin, if I miscommunicated how that works, please let me know.
Well, and I'm going to pop in, Shannon. This is Jane again. We also can, if it's one courier who's causing lots of problems, we have a lot of clout with Henry to say, we can't have this courier on our route anymore. You can use it for other things, but he's not, or she is not doing their job for us. So the more information we have, the more we can track down where the problem is occurring. Is it at the warehouse that something's being left behind? Is it the courier driver has too small of a vehicle? Or the courier driver just isn't being a considerate courier to us. So the more information we have, the better. And that's why even when you report it to me in an email, if you can also follow up on that form, because that gives us some continuity to see where those, like, oh guys, we've had this problem on Mondays in this part of the state. So who's the Monday driver or who's at the warehouse on Mondays that's, you know, causing some issues.
Thank you so much for that, Jane. I feel so much better because I could look through my emails and tell you how many I received in the past asking me what was expected to be done when I send these reports. So I felt pretty helpless, and we transit an awful lot of stuff from here at Scenic. But I will say that very few items actually end up being lost. Most things are found on a shelf somewhere in a library, not actually lost by the courier. So that rarely happens. It's just, yes, I did get my dander up by getting emails asking me, what are your—
Well, and Diane, call me anytime, because really I love to talk. Robin and Janet have been, and Shannon have heard me talk. So I would love to chat. So if you have any qualms or you get an email and you're like, I'm not really sure they heard what I was saying, just pick up the phone, give us a call. We're three of us in a fairly small house here in our office. So we do like to talk to outside people. And I'm from the library world, so I love to hear what's going on out in those libraries. So thanks again for letting me chat. And I love being included in these meetings, so I hope that continues.
No, thank you. I do have one. Oh, did you want to say something? Because I have one more thing that's not on the agenda before I lose my microphone.
Sure. I just wanted to add that we did include the link to the MALA Courier Services website on the Missouri Evergreen website. So if you're not sure where some of those reporting forms are, you should be able to find it from that link to report lost or damaged items or found items. We've added that link to the Missouri Evergreen webpage. It's under resource sharing under the members resources tab.
And this is Janet Carruthers for the Missouri State Library. And I just want to follow up on what Shannon said is the MALA does get a grant from the Missouri State Library to do the resource sharing throughout the state. And one of the reasons for you doing the annual survey is for us to know that they are efficiently and effectively providing this service to you. And so we do need to know, and we care about that they are helping you at the level you need. And if they're not, then yes, we will try a different courier. I mean, that's done in the past. So, but from what we're seeing on the survey and hear from the people we talk with right now, we're doing great and glad it's getting better.
Okay, the one other thing I wanted to talk about was something we discovered here at Scenic that was quite surprising. We had a patron that owed us $900, and that patron was able to go through his OPAC account and renew something. So we found out that we had a consortium setting that allowed people to renew things even if they had exceeded the fine threshold. And I brought that up in the listserv and asked people what they thought about it, and they said they did not want people to renew items if they had exceeded the fine threshold. So we had that change made in the ILS. People already could not have holds fulfillment or check anything out if they exceeded the fine threshold, but they were allowed to renew.
Thanks for doing that, Diane.
You're welcome.
Do I
Any
have the
questions?
next meeting right, Diane?
Yes, the
27th?
27th at 11. Yeah, fourth Tuesday at 11.
And I did want to mention, just because we're talking about next meeting dates, even if you don't serve on the CERT committee or the cataloging committee, you're always welcome to attend those committee meetings. They do a lot of good training and they clarify a lot of detail on processes in those meetings. So please, you're welcome to attend any and all meetings that Missouri Evergreen has. So when we're trying to send those meeting notices out to the general membership, so feel free to attend if you would like to learn more about Missouri Evergreen circulation or Missouri Evergreen cataloging.
I try really careful. I'm very careful about not even calling them cataloging committee meetings. These are cataloging meetings. So yes, please come.
And I think we're keeping attendance at these meetings now because attendance at least 4 meetings a year is a requirement. I think that's going to be added to the MOU. Well, and it's in the circulation and the cataloging policies too, that you need to attend 4 meetings a year. Your library does, and we understand that not every library has lots of staff there, so you may not be able to attend the meetings. So the meetings are being recorded so that you can listen to them later.
Any questions of Diane or the circulation committee? No? Thank you so much, Diane. I appreciate it. Okay, I think Kyle's on the meeting today and wanted to update us on the reports committee.
Yes. So I did want to bring to everybody's attention that we do have some new training materials that should be going up on the moevergreenlibraries.org site very soon. One new video was produced, and it's already up and available on the site. It is on recurring reports. I recently attended a Greater Missouri Evergreen community interest group meeting wherein they shared some really valuable information about creating recurring reports, particularly for monthly statistics, which I know a lot of us do for board reporting and things like that. So I included some of that information, trying to pass that on to as many people as I can. So even if you don't feel the need for the other videos in that series, it is kind of intended for people that don't have a lot of experience with reports. But that 5th video that has information about recurring reports, that might be something that those of you who want to create monthly recurring reports, that may be something to watch anyway, even if you feel like you're fairly well versed in the module. The other things that we have going up, we have 18 new report guides that were turned in this week to Ron and Dan, our webmasters. So I just gave those to them, so I don't want them to feel rushed or anything like that to get those up, but those should be up soon. And those will be, the goal eventually is to have a guide up for each template in our shared folders, so that people who are new to those templates will know the basics for how to run those. Obviously, there's still going to be issues or questions that's anticipated, but it's really intended to get somebody off the ground and running if they want to create statistical reports using those templates. The other thing on the agenda was, I know, and I apologize, I was a little late to the meeting. I know that Shannon was going to mention the nominating committee earlier in the agenda, and I missed that. But I did just want to put out a call We have lost a couple of committee members recently, and so far we haven't been able to replace them. I've talked to a couple of folks in the consortium to see if they would be interested, and I'm kind of striking out. So I just wanted to put that call out there. Like I said, we've lost a couple of members, and then I will be leaving at the end of this term year I will no longer be the chair. So whatever work is ahead of that committee, with whomever at the helm, they're going to need some help. So as Steve alluded to earlier, we have been in some discussions about some development for the reports module. I think that's probably a good project or a good next step to improve things for all of our members. I think it would be great for that module to become so usable that the reports committee is maybe less needed. But to get there, we're still going to need some folks that are well versed in reports to advise whoever is developing that module what we actually need.
You could be on the ground level and get all the accolades for doing this new join the reports committee.
Absolutely. You'll get all the credit. That kind of brings me to another subject that I wanted to just throw out there real quickly. I know it's not on the agenda, but speaking of advising people on new development and reports, we discussed the strategic planning survey in the last meeting that we had, the last membership meeting, and in part of that discussion was about the overall satisfaction that folks have with reports, and we know that there's a lot of work to be done there. To follow up on that, I am working on a feedback survey that I'm going to be working with the committee to finalize, and I just wanted to throw this out there to the membership that is going to be coming. And the more feedback we get from members about any challenges that they have using the reporter module, or their experiences in general, the better, because that will allow us to be able to again advise whoever is developing the fixes or new interfaces or whatever that looks like. It will allow us to better advise them to really address the things that we're experiencing, and as detailed as you can of information as you can provide is going to be really beneficial for that effort. Other than that, the only other thing I wanted to mention is that our next meeting is actually later today at 2 o'clock. I know it's on the same day as our membership meetings. We've had that discussion multiple times, and it's just never been moved. So apparently for current committee members, it works, but I understand folks who may be meetinged out by that point, but everybody is welcome. Any questions?
Just to clarify, Kyle, you're
Yes.
resigning, you're stepping down as chair because you're termed out or whatever, but you're also leading the committee totally?
That's a really good question. I'm in discussion right now with the person who has not yet completely confirmed that they're going to take my place, and I don't want to call them out until they have actually committed. But I told them that I would try to make that transition as smooth as possible. If that means staying on for a little while, I'm fine with that. And I do intend to continue to be active on listservs and things like that. So even if I'm not on the committee or I'm not attending every single committee meeting, I do intend to continue to try to contribute when those kinds of questions are raised.
How many people are on the committee right now, Kyle?
Right now we have 4.
Oh, including you?
Including me, yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes.
And I don't want to go into this in depth, but I do think Missouri Evergreen needs to think about a legacy plan in terms of board members and committee members. I've thrown out the idea of like a past chair and a chair kind of a process in order to help smooth those transitions. Missouri Evergreen is really managing itself as a consortium. So there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to manage. if you serve as a committee chair or if you serve on the executive board. And I think it takes a little bit for the new person to get acclimated. So I really would like the nominating committee to, and I don't, it may be something that's to think about, maybe some sort of process for transitioning in the new committee chairs or the new board members and trying to create some sort of legacy as we move forward.
And how about making the reports committee one of the standing committees that is in our bylaws? Right now, we only have a circulation and the cataloging committee as a standing committee.
I do think the reports committee should be standing based on the feedback we've gotten from all the members, and because it's a tough module, I don't know how quickly or how necessary we need to make that an official bylaw change. I don't know.
Yeah, that's definitely been discussed over the years, because it kind of was started as an interest group and kind of had a very defined task to complete. And once that was done, we continued on to try to, continue that improvement and address some needs, because we knew that there were things people were struggling with. And so, we've tried to do our best to identify those things and provide information to people and answer questions and things like that. But I think it could definitely benefit from some additional structure if it's going to be retained long-term.
And Kyle has been at the helm since almost the beginning. Diane started the interest group, and then it had to change hands, and Kyle's been the chair for probably over 4 years.
It's definitely more than 3. I don't know that it's quite 4, but yes, quite a while.
Kyle, isn't there an international Evergreen reports group that's meeting now also, just for members that might be interested?
There is, and yeah, that's the group that I mentioned earlier when discussing the recurring reports information that I put in the newest video. So yeah, they just met. I've been trying to put that information out on the listservs whenever they are meeting. I think I failed to do that this month, but they've been meeting. I think it's every other month, so they don't meet that often. And I'll be honest with you, I think it's a really valuable thing to attend. I always get something out of it. I always get new information. So I think it's definitely worthwhile. There are a lot of folks in that group that are extremely well versed in the reporter, and so occasionally it can feel a little bit overwhelming. But again, they answer questions extremely well. I've asked a lot of questions that I thought I might just get a round of laughs from them, and they were all very professional and answered those questions. And I was surprised on a couple of occasions that I asked questions that they also have had and nobody has fixed yet. So there are definitely those things that need to be fixed, that have just kind of been lingering out there because nobody has supported development. So that's hopefully something that we can try to address. But yes, I will try to get those meeting the connection information for those meetings. Of course, they're all virtual because people are all over the country, if not the world, and so it's pretty easy to get connected and attend those meetings. Yeah, I'll try to make sure that gets out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you to Kyle personally, because he's handled a lot of my questions for reports for Missouri Evergreen as a whole, and really taken the lead on that, even in setting a reports retention policy this year for the consortium and looking at what options we have as a consortium to improve the reports module with Webby. So I know myself and I have placed a lot of work on Kyle singularly, so I appreciate that. Before we move on to the next committee report, I've asked someone to take minutes for me today, and she's asked that I ask everyone to change your Zoom name, if you can, to have your full name in your library so that she can put that in the minutes, if you don't mind. Perfect. Steve, did you have an update from the Strategic Planning Committee today?
Sure. There seems to have been a lot of me today, although that probably isn't too unusual. But let me update my library name here for the minutes. Hold on. So I'll kind of give a general rundown, which is kind of probably a repeat from the last meeting. But what the committee's been doing, and we had a little transition. We had Lola, who was at Trails, leave, and so we had to replace her with Candy Warren at Livingston County. And so that was kind of a transition we've made, but for the most part, we've been chugging along. We collected 3 sets of data. We did a survey of all the member libraries, which was a quite extensive survey. And then we did a survey of the non-member libraries, which was a shorter survey, but we got huge responses on both those. I think we had 50 of our 52 members respond to the member survey. And then on the non-member survey, we had 70 or 75, I think 75 out of the 95 non-members respond, which are enormous, as you might imagine, enormous response rates. And then we also have responses from consortia around the country. We did another survey of them. So right now the committee has gone through, and we're going through question by question, looking at the data. We already completed the member survey, I think. We did the shorter one, the non-member survey first. We did that one, we finished that. Now we're on to the member survey, and we're 2/3 through that. I think we're gonna finish it up at our meeting on Monday, because we've been meeting weekly now. So Monday we'll meet, we'll finish that up, and then the following week, hopefully move on to the consortia surveys. And once we get through that data, we're probably going to start hammering out the actual plan, strategic plan. That we're getting really kind of to the tough stuff now in the member survey regarding recommendations about staffing and things like that, which is the kind of the controversial or tough stuff in terms of how to address those problems and things like that. And then, like I said, the last set of data will be the consortia. I will say I'm already also on the newly created fees committee. I'm sorry, the newly created personnel committee that Colleen Knight is heading. And I was also just on the fees committee. I'm on some other committee, I think, too. I don't know, I can't keep track. But the point of that is that I feel like maybe this was not done. Oh, the onboarding committee I'm not on, but I was bringing that into the loop too for what I'm going to say here. I feel like we didn't maybe do this right as a consortium in hindsight. And the reason I say that is because it seems like all the committees I'm on are all kind of doing, they're doing things simultaneously, when I feel like the strategic planning committee probably, for example, should have, we collected a lot of data, and a lot of the data was relevant to the onboarding committee, relevant to the personnel committee. And if it wasn't the fact that I was on those other committees or had connections to other committees, they wouldn't even have had the data we have, because we're not going to release this data, all our survey results, until we release our strategic plan as part of the appendix of that strategic plan. So I feel like probably what should have happened in hindsight was the strategic planning committee should have collected all their data, put out their report, and then based on that report, we should have then created the fees, personnel, onboarding committees, and used the data and the recommendations of the strategic planning committee to kind of guide those committees. That's just kind of my feeling, but it's working out. I did send a lot of data, not a lot, some data that we had to the onboarding committee that people had input about. One of our questions was something along the lines of, were there unexpected things that you had to deal with or didn't like when you joined Evergreen originally? And so we had a lot of feedback from that question, and we passed that along to the onboarding committee. With the member, well, two things. With the membership data, we saw most of the members were already extremely happy with our fees, which would lend someone to say, well, then why do we need to redo the fees if everyone was already happy with them? As everyone knows, the reason is to attract the new members that it's unaffordable for. So we didn't feel like the data was contrary to what the fees committee was still doing, although it still probably would have been probably good to have that. Although we need that, we really needed the change to happen to recruit more members. I still feel like perhaps the strategic planning committee was needed to go first on that to provide that data. But anyway, so we're chugging along. I hope to have something, a draft of something by May, sometime in May. We're trying to meet weekly now, working very hard to do that, although that's harder to coordinate. But that's it, I guess. Any questions about anything I rambled on about? Nothing, huh? That's it, huh? Okay, well, that's good.
I'm curious how many calls you made to get that kind of response rate.
I honestly, on both those surveys, we didn't make any calls. Well, the one was anonymous, so we couldn't. The member one was anonymous. Yeah. So I did send, we gave the people 2.5 weeks to respond. And I sent out a reminder email after each week. And I didn't send any listservs. I sent it directly to the director. So I think that made a difference. But I sent out the original email and then a reminder each week after that. And I did the same thing with the non-member survey. And that was our results. So I guess we just got lucky or something, or people really wanted to give their opinions about Evergreen, one of the two.
Any questions for Steve? I think that's good feedback, Steve, about the strategic planning committee. I know it's hindsight, but I know that we've already talked about strategic plan being updated every so many years. So now I think with this feedback, we'll know to start the strategic planning committee sooner so that we have the report out of that committee before we maybe revisit the fee structure again or revisit a personnel or even the onboarding committee and the personnel committee. I think those will be ongoing tasks. So it's good to know that.
I mean, one of our recommendations is going to be to do a member survey every couple of years, because frankly, it was very easy to do, especially if we're using the same survey. Now that we created it, it was a lot of work creating it the first time. It might just need to be tweaked, but honestly, it provided so much useful data for the operations of Evergreen. We probably should have done it years ago and been doing it regularly, because it just revealed a lot of stuff that, I mean, we kind of knew just vaguely, but we really didn't see it until we got the results. It's been I think it's very illuminating information. It's something that we need to definitely continue doing to be able to direct how the board operates, you know.
Agreed. Again, anybody that has any questions about strategic planning or wants to be involved, please just speak up. They would love it, the extra hands. Okay, if nothing else for Steve, we'll move on to the onboarding committee. And oh, I misspelled Leanne Santee's name, haven't I, Leanne? Sorry about that.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I just recently kind of agreed to take on the chair of the onboarding committee since we'd been without an official chair. Shannon basically had taken on planning most of the meetings recently. But we've been meeting for several months, you know, basically just trying to come up with an overall streamlined process when we add new libraries. You know, the goals of educating the libraries on the policies and procedures and what's expected of them, and then maintaining the catalog's integrity is critical as well when we add the new materials and patron data. And so we basically worked together on creating a timeline that Shannon has up there now. And it basically starts 6 months out from the migration day when the oncoming library signs the MOU. Then we'll plan to do a migration team. We'll assign Evergreen members to work with the oncoming library. Then we have a technology survey to send out to the new library to fill out, to kind of get just a general idea of where they are currently before coming on. And then the main thing is to get access to the cataloging records. And I know Kate, you and Nate have really been critical on trying to make sure that the records are going to be good when they come in to prevent a lot of issues. So I believe Nate was working with Equinox a little bit with the Henry County. So we're really trying to kind of increase communication with Equinox as the new libraries come on to make sure that we are working with them. Let's see. And the timeline is kind of a combination, mostly of what Equinox goes on and then where we need to kind of step in and give us an idea where we as Evergreen Onboarding Committee can kind of help streamline the process and be an active part in it. Let's see. Other than the timeline, I know Shannon had created the welcome packet, so that will also go out and be used as we're recruiting libraries. And so that has a lot of really good information on what our consortium really consists of. So that has been created. And then a letter has been sent out. Is that right, Shannon?
No,
Or
we're
not
still
yet?
working on that one.
Okay.
So
But a letter has been drafted to send out to libraries asking to be willing to send, a member of their library to a nearby or similar sized library to assist during the migration. So just really encourage any of you libraries out there to be willing to, have your staff available for that purpose. And there will be some travel reimbursements available on that. And we're working on the policy on that as well. To, cover expenses like mileage and even hotel stays if necessary, meals, things like that. And yeah, we do have 2 libraries coming on very soon, later this summer. The first one is going to be the James Memorial. Let's see, so that is in July, and then the Henry County is in August, and we have the Trails and Scenic libraries agreeing to work with them.
Are we voting on the this today, the travel or the reimbursement, or?
we can vote on this today. If we need to wait until next meeting, since I didn't send it out very much in advance of this meeting, I'm okay with that too. I'm not sure. Has everyone had a chance to review the draft policy? Does anyone have any questions or any feedback? So go ahead.
What library are you with, Leanne?
I'm with the Barry Lawrence Regional.
Oh, great. I have not got to meet you yet.
Right,
Great
yeah.
job. I have a question. Just look, is this policy really for more, is it also for recruitment or strictly for onboarding? I feel like there's some recruitment elements you mentioned.
I think it would be for any library that traveled on behalf of Missouri Evergreen, whether that was demos and recruitment or training and onboarding.
Yeah. I have a suggestion, but no one might like it, and that's fine. I know that the state and the federal mileage differs dramatically. My library, we use the federal rate, which I think is better. It's at least 10 cents more. So I'm good with the fact that the mileage is being reimbursed at that rate. On the meals and the lodging, considering if we were to approve this policy $50 per day, it's going to remain static and it's have to be updated in the future, which I hate doing that kind of stuff. And I know the federal per diems are ridiculous. However, I was just looking online here at the state per diems. The state of Missouri, it looks like, I could be wrong, but I think it's correct. They allow a per diem of $96 per night for lodging and $55 per day for meals outside of the Kansas City and St. Louis areas. Inside the Kansas City and St. Louis areas, because the cost of living is higher there and everything, the meal rate is $66 per day, and the lodging rate's $125 in Kansas City and $135 in St. Louis. I love the idea of this policy because I've been asking about this for years when we did all our demos and stuff around the state, that it would be great if libraries could be reimbursed. My only request is just to make this something that will evolve and not have to constantly be updated. I would love to see the meals and lodging per diems tied to the state levels for Missouri.
I think that's a really good catch. Good.
I don't
I
think
agree with that as well.
I don't think
I
they're
agree.
outrageous. I think they're reasonable for our state, the numbers I just gave. And I think they're in line kind of with the $50 you already have. It'd be a little bit more, but not much. And then as the state updates it each year, it would automatically update our policy then.
Yeah, that makes sense. Mhm.
So why don't we revise that and send it out with our next meeting to vote on. Does anyone have any other feedback or input? There's something in the chat. I haven't looked at it. Oh. Has anyone had, or excuse me, have you guys read the rest of the policy? No, there's another page here. Oh, no, it's not. Okay. Is everyone okay with us coming back with a revision and then voting at the next meeting? Okay, so I think that's what we'll do on this particular policy. I wanted to just add a little detail to the difference between going back to the onboarding committee report from Leanne. So Equinox assigns a migration team to a new library. It's usually about 2 staff people on their side. They have like a project manager and a data analysis, I should say 3 people and a trainer. One of the things written into our migration cost is 17 hours of remote training with Equinox. Some of the feedback we've gotten from our new libraries and from the feedback survey that, or the member survey that Steve was mentioning earlier, is that remote training isn't providing what new libraries need. So receiving that feedback was one of the reasons we thought about setting up an onboarding committee and seeing what we could do as a membership to help new libraries that are coming on board. And out of the onboarding committee, we decided to establish a Missouri Evergreen migration team to work with the Equinox migration team for new libraries. The things that the Missouri Evergreen team will do, they'll be active on those migration phone calls, so they'll be able to talk about consortial policies that apply to when a library is trying to set their library settings, and how borrowing rules work and how billing rules work and how cataloging, what our cataloging policies are. Our Missouri Evergreen folks will be able to speak to that during those phone calls. Then Missouri Evergreen will provide 1 day of on-site training to that library 2 to 3 weeks before their go live date. And their Missouri Evergreen migration team will be on-site the day that the library goes live. So that's kind of the commitment of the Missouri Evergreen migration team. So we are trying to draft a letter that we're going to send to directors asking them if they would volunteer their library to be on the list to serve as a Missouri Evergreen migration team library. We're trying to keep those close geographically if we can. That may not always be the best fit. If it's a large library that's coming in, they really may need to be paired with another larger library. So geographically, that might not always be the best match, but right now that's kind of where we're going. As Leanne said, James Memorial comes online July 29th, and Diane Deespro and Ruth Lord are serving as their Missouri Evergreen migration team from Scenic Regional Library. And then Henry County will come on live August 19th. And Henry County's migration team is Kyle and Nate, both from Trails Regional Library, serving as their migration team. Cedar County will come on next year, but Colleen at Polk County has already agreed to serve as Cedar County's migration team. So I just wanted to give a little explanation as to why we're adding the Missouri Evergreen migration team in conjunction with the Equinox migration team, and kind of the breakdown of who does what. Are there any questions about that, or any questions for Leanne?
I just wanted to add something, and this is Kyle from Trails, to kind of just dovetail along with what Shannon was talking about, and a little bit about what Kate mentioned earlier during the cataloging portion of the meeting. Just an example of why these kinds of teams are necessary. In the Henry County call that we had earlier this week, there was some discussion about bringing over their e-material bib records, and Equinox seemed very ready to help them bring those over into our catalog, and it, that kind of prompted the discussion that we had with everybody on the listserv, and then today, because it seemed like they really, and I realize we're not their only clients and all of that, but again, that's why we need to be there, so that we can say, hang on, that's not something that we do. It has felt in a lot of situations, and I'm sure many of you already are aware of this, but if it's technically possible and the library that is migrating wants something to happen, Equinox will be accommodating if they can. And so we need to be there to say this is or is not something that we do as a consortium.
Right.
And Equinox is asking us to try to give them, and I'm hoping that comes out of the onboarding committee, kind of a written list of what our global requirements are, global policies are as a consortium. And so, you know, in their defense, as Kyle said, they have a lot of customers. They're not a Missouri Evergreen member. They don't attend the meetings. We really need to give them something in writing probably eventually that says, you know, these are the no-go rules or these are the absolutes. And I'm hoping, I just thought of that after the conversation on the listserv. I'm hoping we can, that might come out of the onboarding committee as we work through a few migrations together.
Right, that's something we definitely can work on. And I know when our library came on board, they did have some general policies that they were aware of and had some of the global policies, but there was some question on things. So yeah, like Kyle was saying, they have the ability to do a lot of things and offer a lot of options for the libraries, but it doesn't mean that we really want those options used as our consortium.
And we had our first meeting with them for James Memorial yesterday, Ruth and I with Equinox. And I could tell that they've done some in-house talking, Equinox has, since meeting with Kyle and the Henry County people, because they're quite willing and anxious to work with us so that we're all on the same page, doing the best for the migrating libraries. I got a really good feel at the meeting yesterday.
Yeah, Equinox was very happy that we got this onboarding committee together and that we were, you know, providing documentation and stuff, because Equinox is willing to help us. We just need to guide them.
Right, I know our library, I believe, was the first one that Equinox actually had migrated over. So there definitely was a lot of questions and a learning process that they were aware of as we were going through the process.
With our previous host, I think they guided us instead of us guiding them. And that's not the way that we can do it in the future.
So before the meeting started, I told Leanne that I was going to send her a giant chocolate bouquet because she agreed to take over the onboarding committee. And I still stand by that, Leanne. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I know you take on so much too, so I'm more than willing to help.
Thank you. Is there any other questions for onboarding before we move to Amigos? No, I'm not sure if there's still an Amigos representative on the meeting. I know Kristen had to step out. Anyone from Amigos? No? Then we'll move on to the Missouri State Library.
Okay, hi everybody. Let's see, and Debbie, if I miss anything, you make sure, and Debbie and Janet. I have both Debbie and Janet on. I first want to talk about Courier, and I'm not sure if Jane was going to mention anything else, but Jane, I'll go ahead and talk about what we're doing as far as Courier Service goes. We are, every year we review our courier stops. And we're getting to the point where we're going to be setting Mall is going to be setting and we'll be helping them with thresholds. If a library is resource sharing a certain number of items, then it looks like they should have 3 stops or 4 stops or whatever that is. So, you know, this is one of those things that takes several years to figure out what those thresholds are. 2020 is not necessarily the year to look at for that, but we certainly have the year before and we can use some of that data. But when we looked at it this year, there were a few libraries that that absolutely needed stops added. And most of those were, all of those were Missouri Evergreen libraries. So some of you have gotten a letter from me that says, yeehaw, we're gonna provide you an extra day. And some of you got the letter that says, we would like you to purchase an extra day because we've maxed out on, you know, kind of what we've done as far as purchasing those days. And then there were a few libraries, I don't think any of them were Missouri Evergreen libraries that have dropped down a day in Courier Service. And this is, again, this is just something that we just have to review every year. So we've done it for this year. So if you didn't get a letter, we're not looking at any changes in the number of courier stops that you want or need. Jane or Debbie, is there anything on that you'd like to add? Okay,
I'm sorry, Robin, I was
No,
having
go
a
ahead.
mute problem. This is Jane. I just add that we are working to get those letters out. So if you are one of those that is changing, pay attention to your letter to make sure we have that documented correctly. Those contracts and agreements will go out. I think there are more agreements than contracts sometime toward the end of April. We do it in a kind of a rollout. So Evergreen Libraries, it's kind of based on how many delivery dates you have. So yeah, and sometimes like one of them libraries called, and I think it was, I don't know if it was an Evergreen or not. And even though their numbers look like they needed a second day, their actual had some, just the times they're open and when the courier comes through their town, they needed to stay with 1 day. So we're open to, all sorts of discussions with you when that, but generally our courier problems occur when we're trying to get too many things in too few of days, because then they're overloaded. So that's what Mickey and then I have worked on, trying to get this kind of continuity and fairness across the state of who the state library, how many days they subsidize and how many days we ask you to pay for. So anytime you have questions, you can call me or Marcy, who's our business manager. But Robin and Janet and Debbie have been great to work with. So thank you.
okay. And the other thing we wanted to cover, and this goes back to the discussion about the fees that you set, and it kind of ties into the grant that Missouri Evergreen writes to the Missouri State Library. One of the things we're looking at in the next grant cycle, and we're working with Shannon on, is that we want to cover more migration costs than just the actual migration costs that Equinox is charging. So for those that are going to be going in, so this is going to be Henry County and James Memorial. Yeah, for sure those two. What we'll have you do, and I promise we'll make this simple, is we're going to have you write a grant for those migration costs, because we want to make sure that you include the labor costs that go along with that. If there's barcodes you need to buy, if there's other equipment that you need, that those get covered in your migration costs as well. So that when we look at how we're doing the grant, we are doing it differently than we have before, because we do feel that there is a lot more that goes into what we were paying for migration costs for those libraries than just what Missouri Evergreen was paying to Equinox. So that's a change that we're doing. And then finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about the Arpa funds. I'm sure most of you have heard that Missouri is set to get, supposed to be sometime this month. I guess it's only the 8th. I've got 22 more days in the month. It's over $3 million that we're getting in the America's Recovery Arpa pandemic, Recover from Pandemic Act funds. And we are currently looking at, we have so many different scenarios on exactly how we're going to want to use those. And I wanted to let you know that part of the discussion is Missouri Evergreen support. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. This is one-time only funds. These are funds that we have to use before September of 2022. So, some of the things that you've mentioned that are definite needs that have to do with cataloging, that have to do with some other special projects, some things like that. So we will definitely be in conversation with Shannon and the rest of the board to talk about some of our ideas and hear some of the ideas from the Missouri Evergreen board as to how we can carve out a bit of those funds to be used to continue our support for Missouri Evergreen. I am thrilled that we're getting these funds. My fellow state librarians and I we call it's a combination between anxiety and excited. Anxiety, I think, is what we're saying, because we had the CARES Act funds, and then we have our regular LSTA funds, and now we have this great bundle. of funds to use too. And it's such a large amount, and knowing that it's not really for major projects that are going to require a lot of sustainability. So, trying to figure out how to do that. But again, I just want to make sure that you all know that we are certainly looking at ways to assist Missouri Evergreen with that. So are there?
Robin?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I have a question. Well, I have a statement, I guess, more than a question, though.
Okay.
I realize that I realize the intent is good, and I really appreciate that the state library is willing to support Evergreen in general, of course, but also help with the migration costs, onboarding costs, etc. However, I just wanted, I'm sure you've heard this, I did want to just express that I do, as you know, my library has done a lot of recruiting. I have a lot of concern about the grant writing requirement being a major deterrent for the smallest libraries in joining. I realize it's giving them more money ultimately to help with the migration, but I have a feeling when we go around talking to the smallest libraries and telling them, well, you have to write a grant, the first thing to do is for your onboarding, that's going to immediately turn them off. Or that's going to happen. Or the other thing is the Missouri, like Shannon just said in the chat to Elena, we'll help you with your grant. We're going to end up doing more work, the other members, to help them write these grants for them, so that we have to do it for them, which is going to not necessarily deter them, but give everyone else more work to do in the consortium. That's just my statement on the grants.
Okay. Well, and you know what, we can help them write the grant too. And this, the reality is that for a lot of libraries, and the way that they get support from us is through the grant process. And I do feel like we have made it easier than it has been. And certainly we are here to help with that process. It's also a great way, Elena, for us to get to know you better, and to help, and Michael to help, and you to see, once you've written this grant, all the other great grant opportunities that we have. I would never want to discourage a library from taking advantage of all of the opportunities, summer library program, technology things that they can get from the state library. And yes, we know that writing a grant, that there is that work involved, and the reporting part of it, but certainly it is our goal to make sure that there's not a library in the state that doesn't have the ability to write a grant. We'll put in this directly what would be the allowable cost. So all of those things would be considered costs for migration. Shannon, we covered a lot of those at our meeting this week. It was a pretty extensive list, which I think makes that even easier. And Steve, we want to make sure that we cover those extra things. I think that the staffing that's involved in migrating to Missouri Evergreen should be covered. And I don't know how, I don't know of a better way
I totally agree. I totally agree with you that your intent is, the state library, and your intent is totally great. I don't question that at all. I just worry, as I'm seeing from the chat with Michael and Elena already, I worry that with the other members we're trying to recruit, it's going to scare them off. That's just I'm just afraid of that, that's all.
And Steve, I understand your worry. I do have a little bit of feedback there. One, Debbie Musselman and Robin both said that it was kind of a boiler template. So it was a pretty basic one. It would be by invite only to libraries that had signed the MOU with Missouri Evergreen. I think the Missouri Evergreen chair can initiate the MOU from Equinox, so they already know what their costs are from that point of view, and they only have to then add in their local cost. And I do think then, since Missouri Evergreen has already written several grants about migrations, I think we can have kind of like a grant packet that they can use with their grant application to kind of help first eliminate any anxiety about the grant process, but also then to really kind of take the work out of it. And then it wouldn't be Missouri Evergreen doing the work grant after grant after grant, but having a packet that we have available that we give to a member that they can use, or excuse me, an incoming member that they could use to write a grant on their own.
Okay, I was just expressing my concern.
Shannon, I think you're right. It's not Henry and James are in this cycle, right? It would be anything after them. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I scared you. I scared you, Michael and Elena. But you know what? If you want to practice, writing a grant. So it's that next fiscal year. So sorry, I didn't mean to scare you guys.
And we did also talk about fast tracking it so that, because it's going to be a quick migration window. And we also talked about cash flow being an issue, but the state library's already worked out cash flow. So I do know there are, we have to get really organized to make this not a hurdle for small libraries, but I do think we're thinking that through, and we have some strategies to help. I'm sure we don't have it perfect, and I'd like more input about that, but I really am making that a priority, that I look at the process and make it as easy as possible for libraries that don't have a lot of staff to do grant writing, so that they could take full advantage of all the funding out there, but hopefully they won't feel overwhelmed by the process of writing the grant to come on board with Missouri Evergreen.
I see in the chat that Lisa asked if the state library tells them you needed to add a day of delivery, are they required to?
Lisa's, I'll have to look at I don't remember exactly what because I sent out so many letters. We can talk offline about that, or because I don't remember exactly if it was you're going from 3 to 4 or 4, whatever that was, but we can talk offline about that.
Shannon, can I say something regarding Lisa's comment on that? Not really about Lisa, but in general. I've heard from a few libraries around the state who were told they were getting extra courier days. Do we have to take this? Why we don't need it, basically. I'd like to just say, just based on the strategic planning's committee's data, when we looked at other consortia around the country, when I personally have requested books from other Missouri Evergreen libraries, just the 3 most recent ones I've requested, it's from the minute I hit the request on the app till I actually received it to check out the day that it came in was about 2 weeks. That's really long if you compare us to other consortia around the country. It's really horrible, actually, to take 2 weeks for a book that's available, sitting on the shelf, not unavailable. My books were all available. And that's directly due to not all our members having 5 days of courier service. I realize that it's not affordable for many libraries, but if you're being offered a free day, any of you, please take it. We have 5 days at my library. I know a lot of the bigger libraries have 5 days. You might not think you need it due to the volume. Oh, I'm only sending out 50 books a day or whatever. Each day I have a courier, but it's speeding up the transport of these materials to patrons around the entire consortium. And that time period is very important because you don't want to deter patrons from wanting to use Evergreen when they think they have to place a request and they're going to wait 3 weeks to get their item. That's not what we want in terms of customer relations with our patrons about Evergreen. So I really strongly, if you're offered extra days, I really strongly encourage you to take them and be happy that you're getting them, even if your volume isn't overwhelming.
Steve,
I couldn't agree more.
I would love to have an extra day, but we're not open on Mondays, and the courier says they can't do it on Fridays. That's their busy day.
Sure.
So that would mean we would have deliveries on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That wasn't really directed at you, Lisa, but I heard it from other people as well. I just wanted to kind of make a general statement about it.
I'm trying to tell you our situation, just so you get an idea of why I don't think it'd be feasible for us. But
Sure.
I mean, if they can't do it on Friday, it really doesn't. I feel like 3 days in a row and then all the rest of the days off doesn't really help us that much with getting materials to our patrons or out to other libraries. But, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I feel like you'll find that it does. I mean,
Yeah. And
I get 5 days in a row and I wish I had 7 days in a row.
Yeah. And as Jane says in the chat, the driver is not the final say as to what's possible. So it is, we still need to have the conversation. And so Lisa, it's probably you, Jane, and I having a conversation to see if we can figure out and make that work for that Friday.
Okay.
And I really appreciate the state library offering that as well. I think the more days of courier service all our members can get, the better. It's just great.
And one thing that I want to make sure that I point out when it comes back to the grant writing, in all of our not all of our, when we do our new director, we're not calling it a boot camp anymore, new director orientation, And we're having a new director group that's going to meet pre-MPLD. We are making sure that the grant writing is a part of that training that we provide as well. We don't want to leave anyone hanging. We don't want to make it scary. We want to make sure that every library has an opportunity to take advantage of any funds that we have, and that the actual writing of the grant is not a deterrent for that. So, any other questions or anything? Debbie, Janet, have I missed anything?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Janet?
Good.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Are there any other matters to come before the group today?
I might have a biased interest, but I was wondering if anything came out of the personnel committee yet.
I'm not sure. Colleen, are you on the call? She didn't respond to the call up for agenda items, so I didn't put her on the list. I assume that meant they didn't have an update yet. I think they've only met once. I don't see.
Yeah, we just met once. We haven't really, not that we haven't done much, but we had a conversation. There was nothing really to report.
So, but maybe in June, Kate.
May I make a suggestion? And this is, I'm not the one who votes from Poplar Bluff, but I do want to go back, and sometimes we do look at history in order for us to understand. There was a time whenever we were going through a particularly busy time with the consortium where we went to monthly meetings for about 3 or 4 months. And this meeting was fantastic in terms of the way it was managed by you, Shannon. And I'm a little prejudiced about Shannon, but also managed by all the membership and the chairs. I would like to ask the executive committee to look at that possibility, because you've got 4 committees working right now. Strategic planning particularly is going to be really rich in content. So I'm asking for you to look at the possibility of a monthly meeting for a while.
Good
Thank
feedback. Good input. Yeah, thank you. I think, yeah, this was 2 hours and it was a lot of content, so that's really good feedback. Any other discussion or input? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Sue Lightfoot.
Thank you, Sue.
Second, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks so much, guys. I know this was a long meeting. Thanks for hanging in there and for everything, all of your hard work for Missouri Evergreen. It is appreciated. It really is.
It's Cardinals opening day. Go Cards. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Let's see. Stop.